Mic doesn't yet. Yeah. Now it's going to work. Change the screen, please. Come on. Welcome to my blank session screen. Any kind of issue?
The duplicate standard.
No, no. Sorry. Hold on a second. No, no, it's, yeah. Just make it bigger. So why are we here today? Talking about my home lab and my favorite topic, working with stuff at home. Why? And what kind of environment? And the session is history, present, as well as future. Just do it on the big screen, please. Nope. Yeah, now we have screen in screen. Nearly done. Come on. One more. Sorry about that. Time is ticking, yeah. Nope. We're close. Nope. Should I start the presentation again? Okay. So who of you runs a home lab or a small environment? Perfect. We all started small, and then at any point of time, it getting out of my control. They are still figuring out. Well, the other one is gone. Okay. Nope. That was close. what is actually your hardest part in your home lab? Getting licenses, right? No? Getting hardware? Hardware? Paying the power bill? Oh, yes. That's my biggest concern also. 30,000 kilowatts per year. Paid by my own, so no sponsor. Yep. Yeah, I like to talk about the history of my environment, why I did start with a home lab, what is my different steps. So getting started with 10 gigs, switching to 40 gigs, switching to 100 gig. Right now, my plans are switching to 400 gig, which is crazy expensive right now, especially the cables or, there we go. Yoo-hoo! You fixed it, thank you guys. Okay, my name is Mark Huppert. I'm a principal consultant or a principal architect at Computer Center in Germany, AKA the official hashtag HomeLab King. Why? I'm going to start with that question. Then I'm going to start with the hardware history of my environment, the hardware today, and a wrap up and a sneak preview of the future. Because a home lab is never going to be finished. Why? Why invest? Why start a home lab? Invest into myself. Without the environment that I'm running at home, and I'm running 3 different data centers at my house, 2 at the basement, 1 at the garage. The garage is just the witness data center for all the vSANs and all this kind of stuff. It is an invest into myself. Without that environment, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be able to pass all those hundreds of certifications. It's going to create know-how. I'm going to use it for demos, inside trainings, and as well as for exam preparations. Hands-on labs is great, but there's all finished environments. You cannot create it completely from scratch. And that's the reason why I invested into my dedicated home lab. So the hardware history. Who knows Evo Rail? Who recognizes it? Yeah. I tried it at home. It never going to work. VxRail is going to work better. So my beginning, 2006, was a custom server, just a small one. Many of you at the same starting point, just a small machine. Then the evolution stage, 1 year later, 2 of those HP microservers, which are totally great, but they have limited resources. 2 years later, I invested into 2 Mac Minis, especially with those Thunderbolt expansion cards or Thunderbolt expansion ports that you could attach PCIe cards to it. I wanted 10 gigabit network connection, 2009. That's the point where many of my customers start investing into 10 gig. It was kind of crazy expensive getting that stuff done. Then some network changes. So I did some Visio slides to show the environment. 1 data center, 1 internet connection, a failover internet connection. And then, that was 2014. And then 2016, I invested bigger. So I bought a Dell Vertex chassis, including 4 crazy blades. I really liked the system itself. You could use GPUs inside it. You can have all the different monitoring stuff in it. There's only one issue, that's power consumption. It's a beast. So 2,000 watts per hour without any problem. And the GPUs need external power supplies. Kinda crazy. That was the point where my wife is gonna ask, what the heck are you doing in our basement? I installed some racks and all this kind of stuff. Did the cabling with my kids. And then 2018, 40 gigs. I invested into 40 gig network. The most expensive part are the cables. Because 40 gigs, many customers invested into 40 gigs. Then they realized, okay, it is just a one-way road. So getting out of 40 gig, getting into 25 and 100 gig. And nearly every customer in the UK sold their equipment through eBay. That's why I got those switches, all the network cards. but the cables, the most expensive part are the cables, 2018. And then it's getting slightly out of control because I got the opportunity to get 2 Velocloud boxes. So Velocloud is an SD-WAN solution. You definitely need more than one internet connection. Okay? Internet connections, several of them for the configuration 2019. Right now, I have 4 different internet connections at our house. And my kids, it's totally crazy, I know. My kids telling their friends, internet is always available and power doesn't matter. That's the reason, or the main thing at our house. vSAN 2020 configuration, I used vSAN on the Vertex. Kind of crazy because the Vertex has a shared SAS storage configuration, but you also could use it for vSAN. That is all OSA-based, so original storage architecture, some Fujitsu boxes, some Lenovo boxes, some older stuff, including the Mac Minis. I set up a vSAN cluster with the Mac Minis because of the 10 gig Thunderbolt connection, which was kind of cool. But it's getting out of resources because a Mac Mini has only 16 gigs of RAM. 16 gigs of RAM in an ESXi host, you can't do really anything with it. Then 2021, changing network infrastructure, investing into 100 gigs at home. And right now, customers asking me, when we're performing AI workshops, okay, how many 10 gigabit networks do I need to connect to my AI system? And I said, come on, guys. I'm doing 100 gigs since 2021 at my HomeLab. And right now, we're talking about 400 or 800 gigabits in production AI environments. We're no longer talking about 10 gigabit connections. 10 gigabit were state of the art 13 years ago. Think about that. And I still have German customers who wants to connect it with gigabit. Come on. The network infrastructure itself, I really like the Ubiquiti stuff. The problem is Ubiquiti don't sell any 100 gig network connection. So I switched over to Nvidia networking, aka Mellanox in the past. Kind of crazy, the switch itself, and especially the duck cables. And those fans inside this switch runs with 8,000 RPMs. It's quite okay. But if you plug in any optical transceiver, the fans goes up to 16,000 RPMs. Crazy. If you unplug it, it goes down to, once again, 8,000. That's the reason why don't use optical transceivers inside those switches. Prefer DAC cables. I call it a solution center because data center 1, basement, the heating room. Data center 2, basement, the wine cellar. And data center 3, my garage. 3 different data centers. That's the past, last year. What about today? I invested into express storage architecture, into NVMe All. As a vExpert last year, we had the opportunity from Intel to get access to a program where Intel get us sample hardware. We need to call it sample hardware because it is borrowed by lifetime from Intel. Kind of cool. Those devices perfectly fit into one of my Dell servers. The main problem is those Dell servers have SAS and SATA backplanes, not the NVMe ones. How to attach those? There are double cards. The main problem with those cards is you need to configure it properly. The secret sauce is slot bifurcation that needs to be configured inside the BIOS. The older Dell systems doesn't support that. R730 and R740 support that. So dedicated cards, without the bit slot bifurcation configuration, only one device shows up. I wanted all 4 inside each host, connected with 100 gigabits to have a dedicated express storage architecture cluster. Then I invested into business continuity and disaster recovery. It's the first time that I bought magnetic disk drives. The reason behind that, each disk drive has 18 terabytes. Why? To run different backup solutions, all virtualized, so it's an ESXi box that still boots from flash. Those devices are configured through a dedicated RAID controller. It's an old IBM server RAID controller. Many of you know this one. It still has driver support for ESX8 and ESX9, so it worked out of the box. Those systems are configured, each drive as a RAID 0, because the virtual appliances itself done the data replication. I'm doing Dell Virtual Edition of their data domain. I'm using Dell Power Protect, I'm using Veeam, and I'm using Cohesity on it. Why? Sometimes customers asking for one of those solutions, and sometimes they want to see migration from one to the other. It is running inside my basement, 25 gig configuration. This machine is running 24/7. And now the newest and coolest part, HoloDeck, VCF, including with AI. And there's an NVMe device recommendation if you want to start with something brand new. I call it the killer feature of VCF 9.0, which is vSphere memory tiering. Memory tiering is kind of crazy. The thing, it is a tech preview in 8.0 update 3, so right now. The requirements for it are performance class F and endurance class D. That's a requirement for memory tiering. I searched through eBay and I found this little device, an older Intel NVMe 4 terabyte PCIe card, 430 euros. Kind of cheap. Plugged it into my ESXi box. This box has 1.5 terabytes of real memory. I know it's crazy for a HomeLab, but nearly all of my systems have 1.5 terabyte. Why? Because it's DDR4 and customers throwing away right now DDR4 memory. I was able to acquire a lot of those 64 gig modules, so 1.5 terabyte. Kind of cool and should be enough for a HomeLab, but not for HoloDeck. You need 384 gigs of memory just for one HoloDeck environment. I want to run 3 or 4 or 5 of them at the same time. The reason behind that, 1.5 terabytes of memory, and this special setting, ESX CLI, memory tiering, that's the new one. Right now, only tech preview, don't use it in production, it has issues. The configuration, the device needs to be formatted or configured as a tier device. There's no UI for it, so just the CLI command, and then the most part that handles how to consume it, the percentage of your memory, your real memory, that is used on the NVMe device. The default value is 25%, the maximum value is 400%. The maximum device supported for memory tiering is 4 terabyte. My device is 4 terabyte, but usable capacity is 3.82 terabytes. I configured 200% of my 1.5 terabytes as NVMe, and that comes up to 4.5 terabytes of memory. Har, har, har. Kind of cool to have 4.5 terabytes of memory in a system. What to do with it? And especially memory tiering has the ability to look inside the hypervisor, inside the virtual machine monitor, which kind of memory areas are hot, which are warm. Those are carried into real memory. And then there are those areas that are cold and freezed. Those going to be tiered out to the NVMe. HoloDeck is a perfect environment for that. Why? You have virtual ESXi servers that catches all the memory when they boot up, and they utilize just 2% of it. And for example, I configured dedicated environments. My first environment is a standard design, so from a vCenter perspective, management cluster for dedicated ESXi hosts, then a workload domain with 4 ESXi hosts, vSAN, as well as a workload domain configured for NFS. The reason? To get familiar with the technology, to show it at customer sites, to do pre-sales on it. You probably know most of the German customers are kind of special. Why? they always requesting a stretched cluster. Germany is the land of the crowd clusters. Everything is stretched cluster. So is it possible to configure VCF as a stretched cluster? Yes, it is, but the configuration is a total pain in the ass. The configuration itself must be done through this developer API. It can't be really used or can't be really done from a UI or CLI perspective. This configuration, 8 different ESXi hosts with 1 witness, can be configured if it's going to be normal vSAN, let's say in 30 minutes, easily. The VCF stuff took 2 days to configure it. The reason why, it has to be done through the developer API. And exact this scenario is asked in the actual deployment exam, the VCF specialist for deployment. If you have never ever done this before in real life, there's no chance that you're going to pass this exam. It was a total perfect preparation for the exam, and especially to show a customer to come from a standard design, or otherwise to come from a consolidated design to a standard design. Most of the customers are really shocked that we need 8 ESXi hosts in a stretched cluster configuration just for the management domain. And then 8 of them for each workload domain. Multiplied by 10, 20, a lot of license costs. And a lot of configuration that needs to be done. The other hype thing right now, from a customer perspective, is actually AI. I want to configure my VCF environment in combination with private AI. That's the reason why I am using a lot of GPUs inside my different clusters. T4 clusters, 4 physical ESXi boxes. Right now, normal ESXi. Next week, there's going to be my first physical VCF cluster to support private AI. The reason behind that, all the other GPUs that I used, Nvidia GPUs as well as the Intel GPUs, have one problem. Inside my HoloDeck environment, I have my newest GPU attached, the Nvidia L4, which is a crazy, crazy cool card. 24 gigs of dedicated memory. AI capable, VDI capable, kind of cool. The problem right now, vSphere memory tiering doesn't work with GPU. You have to choose vSphere memory tiering or GPU stuff. Right now, you can't combine. I'm in discussions with the engineering how to fix my problem. Hopefully, it's going to be fixed when 9.0 going to be released for GA. That's the reason why this cluster is going to be reinstalled with physical VCF configuration to support private AI. Right now, if you deploy, I'm going to switch one slide back. If you deploy this one inside the newer systems of VCF, you have this playbook called Private AI. It's kind of cool to click through it and to see the different required steps. To explain that to a customer, that kind of project could easily took 3 to 4 weeks before everything is started up and running. Inside my environment, it took, without GPUs, 4 days to get it up and running. The reason behind that is memory consumption inside the base system. So when I started with this environment, I had no vSphere memory tiering. Each ESXi host has 128 gigs of virtual memory, which simply is not enough. Right now, every virtual ESXi host has 256 gigs of memory, and actually I'm running 40 different ESXi hosts on that box. The problem right now, even vSphere memory tiering doesn't give me enough memory. I need to invest in that. So if any one of you has an old SAP system with a lot of memory, raise your hand, I'm going to buy it. So that's the AI part. The latest change I have done 2 weeks ago, network changes. The reason, newer Wi-Fi standard. I configured everything with Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7. The reason behind that, each access point needs 2.5 gig network connection. So I need to switch and replace some of those switches. Still everything Ubiquiti-based, and it's kind of cool when your MacBook or your iPhone connects to your new Wi-Fi and says 2.4 gigabits of throughput. Cool. Right now, I'm running 4 different internet connections in a combination of SD-WAN, and my entire HomeLab right now, 880 CPU cores. Actually, it's a problem getting NFR licenses in such an amount of cores. Kind of crazy. Nobody at Broadcom tries, at the first time, tries to believe that I'm running this thing at home. 100 gigahertz of CPU frequency, 22 terabytes of memory, flash capacity, 39 physical servers. Those are not running 24/7. Only 5 of them run in 24/7. The problem right now, 30,000 kilowatts energy. And right now I'm paying 33 cents per kilowatt hour. 3 weeks ago I was at the Dell headquarters in Austin. I had discussions with some Dell people. They are paying 5 cents a kilowatt hour compared to my 33. Kind of crazy. And that's the main thing that I changed in my environment, power consumption. My first thought was, why not shut down simply something at night, because I'm the only user of my environment, because it's my HomeLab environment. Except my son and my wife is going to consume some VDI sessions as well, but yeah, we could deal with it. The main thought, shutting systems down. When you do that, how many hours does it take to bring it up again? A lot. I tried it, and no, there's no way. So my thoughts were, is it possible to reduce power while those systems are running? So throttling them. I used my connections to the guys at Intel, to Dell, as well as to VMware. We made a private Teams session, somewhere from a German perspective, deeply at night. And we had discussions about how can I tune my entire environment from an Intel perspective, from a Dell perspective, as well as VMware options. I don't want to shut anything down. I just want to reduce the consumption. Are there ways? The Dell guys told us, we have this performance power option inside the BIOS. I said, that's not enough. The Intel guys told me, we have C states and P states that could be used. The VMware guys told me, we have high performance, we have ballast, we have low power, and we have custom. Okay, how to combine that? A lot of hours of talking. In the end, everyone in the room, in the virtual room, says, we never had such a meeting before, because everyone is looking on their perspective, but not on the big picture. So we tried, or they gave me options, and I tried it 3 weeks, every evening, shutting systems down, changing something, monitoring again. I made it possible to go down from 30,000 kilowatt hours to 19,000. How? Dedicated BIOS options from Dell, dedicated ESXi settings for Intel CPUs, as well as custom option in the VMware hypervisor. I've written a blog post about that, and right now I made it for me and my HomeLab or other HomeLab stuff. Right now I have customers in production who used it to reduce their power consumption. Try to figure out how to, the amount of power that could be reduced just by simply throttling things. For example, my main cluster, vSAN cluster, has 26 core CPUs with 2.7 gigahertz. When I'm testing stuff, I want to use all the cores with the maximum amount of frequency. But when I'm sleeping, I'm reducing it. The cores are still up, but using only 1.2 gigahertz, which dramatically reduces the power consumption of the entire system. Combined with all those settings, I was able to drill it down from 30,000 to 19,000, which right now is affordable, that 5 machines run in 24/7. And I created a PowerShell script. It's just a 4-liner on a timely basis, switching between high performance, balanced, as well as custom option. Inside ESXi, there are 3 or 4 options that needs to be changed, monitored first, changed to reduce or throttle your system. And we have customers who implemented that on a regular basis, exactly on a weekend basis. They throttle down their systems on Saturday and Sunday, and they just changed the power policy via script on Monday to have all the power back on a normal workday. Kind of crazy what is possible. When I finished this little blog article, the guys from the VMware hands-on lab comes to me and says, could we try it out in our environment? Because it's also a thing, the power consumption itself. Why not throttle things instead of shutting anything down? Oh, sorry, this one. Is it all worth all the effort? I would say yes. It's all about knowledge and getting experience. I work for a reseller, for a system integrator. I always need to be one step ahead of our customers. How to achieve that? Most of the time, customers have newer hardware. They have bigger budgets. But most of the time, they are doing default stuff on it. I had a lot of conversations with people from Dell, from Intel, from VMware, who told me that is simply impossible. I said, let me try it out. Why not? And it's a great feeling when everyone else is going to tell you it doesn't work, and you make it going to work, just in your environment. Does it really make a difference? Absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today. I use it for training. Sometimes on my last training, I had a question from a customer about vSAN encryption configuration in later, so as a day 2 operation. Is it possible? In the normal vSAN environment, in the training environment, it wasn't possible because there was no KMS system configured and all this kind of stuff. So we tested it out in my environment. It's all about knowledge and getting experience. Should you start with a HomeLab? Yes, of course. It doesn't have to be bad as like mine. So use your lab, especially test out vSphere memory tiering. A friend of mine does it on an Intel NUC or Asus NUC right now, and it worked great. So it is an option to test VCF. Get familiar with VCF, prepare yourself for the exams, getting knowledge. It's fun part playing with it. The stupid part is waiting for the deployment to be done. So 4 hours, 5 hours, yeah, do it at night. That's it. Thank you very much.